What's up, you guys? I'll speak here. To be quite honest, uh, this one is a bit tricky. I don't know if I have the energy to really put my all into this one. A lot of people like this movie. So with that being said, here's my review for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Right off the bat, and so there's no confusion, I honestly didn't like the first Ant-Man movie. Well, to be more precise, I never even bothered to watch the first Ant-Man movie. I personally didn't watch the first Ant-Man movie because I honestly thought it was kind of boring. It looked boring. I didn't really care for a dude who could shrink to the size of an ant and smaller simply to, I guess, steal stuff? If that was what he was trying to do? I don't really remember, nor do I really care to watch what happened in the first Ant-Man movie. Mostly because I just never really found Ant-Man as anything more than just a dull character trying to be funny, who also happens to have a suit that can shrink him into microscopic size. Other than that, Ant-Man just seemed unappealing to me. It seemed like it was just going for the same old Marvel formula. Just be funny. When I already got Guardians of the Galaxy for that, I don't really need another funny character to, come into my life like that. So, with Ant-Man, I skipped it altogether. The only reason I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp was because my brother and me wanted to do something one weekend, and that's how I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp. Anyway, I guess this review is going to be a little iffy, solely because I had not seen the first one, and I'm going in blind here with the Ant-Man, story. So let's first get into character. Sorry guys, but from this point on, it's mostly just images, because I'm sick of getting copyright strikes from Marvel and Disney because I show clips from their trailers. Trailers, those things that they released to the general public. Anyway, I'm unfortunately just gonna have to use images, so yeah, sorry. So I'm gonna be real here and say it. Scott Lang is a boring character, and not just as a character, but as a hero in general. I don't know, maybe it's just because I don't really see the importance or the appeal of a dude who can shrink to the size of an ant and below, but if you can tell me what it is, I'd very much appreciate it. But even taking away the Ant-Man, Scott by himself is just, well, boring. He's basically like a less funny Peter Quill if you took away the childlike personality. I mean, he's not that memorable, and his motivations are dull.
You look dusty.
And to top it off, I don't seem to care for anything that he does. His relationship with Cassie, his daughter, that's cute enough, but even with that, Scott doesn't really give me anything to want to willingly pay $20 to see him on the big screen. No disrespect to Paul Rudd, but Scott is as forgettable as most of Marvel's villains. Hope was undoubtedly the star of the movie. She had the better suit, the better combat, and better motives compared to our bumbling protagonist. Her entire character stood out the most, with rough and tumble femme fatale strength, mixed with this caring nature of a woman on a quest to find her mother. Now, like I said, I didn't see the first Ant-Man film, but if I did, I'd probably say the same thing as I am now. Hope should have been the protagonist of this film. Hank's an asshole. That's my general consensus on him based on what Bill Foster, his old partner, has said about him. Like I said, never saw the first film, so I can't imagine him being the same as the first film as well. Hank may want to do what he can to save his wife, but I kind of feel like, he puts other people's lives at risk. I understand his reasoning, but it was just reckless. At that point, it's up to the morals as to whether or not you like Hank, but I just feel like he was in the wrong for so many things, and it just seemed as though he wasn't taking responsibility for any of those problems. I mean, he's funny, I guess. Is that what Marvel wanted out of me? Because there are other old people in this universe who do it better. Jeff Goldblum being one of them. Lewis is probably another highlight of the film. I actually like his narrations, even if they do ramble on. But I don't know, I also like his buddies. Also, shout out for T.I. being part of that, and the whole Baba Yaga, John Wick reference. I don't know if it was directly a John Wick reference, but it just kind of felt like it. Then there's Janet, Hope's mom. Didn't really leave much of an impression on me, other than, being the focus of the hero's quest to find her. I mean, I have some theory about her, but I'll go more further into detail with that later on. Now, with most Marvel villains, they usually come off as reflections of the heroes. T'Challa and Eric, Thor and Loki, Hulk and Abomination. All have that connection to one another and build off one another as a classic hero versus villain face-off. Ghost is not that, and thank God for that. You see, Ghost actually didn't start as a woman. In the comics, Ghost was actually a male, and she was Iron Man's enemy. Well, he was Iron Man's enemy. But then came Ava Starr, the female Ghost, who made her first big debut in this film. Now for me, she's definitely got the top spot for best female Marvel villain. And yes, she is even ahead of Hela. Why? Well, here's why. In this movie, Ava was never really the villain. Instead, she was only a woman doing whatever she needed to stay alive. Her abilities of phasing through objects was something that was slowly killing her. She felt pain every waking moment of her life as her entire molecular structure literally ripped itself apart and then stitched itself back together in the harshest way. If she did nothing, she would have disappeared from existence. Think Tracer from Overwatch. How she needs that device on her chest in order to maintain a stasis within our reality, otherwise she'd just disappear. Except for Ava, she has to stay in a containment field in order to live. Ghost was someone that stuck out for me. She was a troubled woman with an urgent condition that desperately needed to be fixed, by any means necessary. It makes you feel for her and it helps you understand why she's doing what she's doing. And then there's this guy, Sonny Birch, as he's called from a quick Google search. He's the most useless villain I've ever seen. I don't know why he was even in the movie, since he served absolutely no purpose from what I can assume, and he just kind of felt like an empty space for something else. But enough about him. Let's get to Bill Foster. Despite him being a little underdeveloped, I actually liked the relationship between him and Ava. It was a real father-daughter setup between them, as he cared for her in her time of need. Plus, seeing Lawrence Fishburne play him made the movie a little bit more worth it. I doubt we'll be seeing him return as Perry White in the DCEU, but I guess he decided to go where the money was. And then there's Jimmy Woo, the police officer. I kind of found it funny because this actor, Randall Park, he plays a lot of police officers in other shows, including that short-lived Nick show, Super Ninjas, back in 2011. So, I'm gonna rush through this since it's kind of gonna be short. The pros. The villain is great. Lewis was a highlight. The look of the microverse looked beautiful. And when the funny moments were funny, which were a few in between, I had a good chuckle. Let's see. Cons. I'll keep it short. Cons. It wasn't really funny. A lot of the comedy felt forced, and I just couldn't find any reason to find any of the film humorous like I should have. The only time where I really laughed was the time when Scott became small and he ended up having to go to his daughter's school to get a trophy where his real suit was. And then they returned to the car, and then they were like, "Aw, someone's grumpy. Do you need a juice box and some string cheese?" And stuff like that. That was funny. I laughed at that. Sonny and his gang are useless. There's literally no importance to them, in my opinion. They were just there. Hank was an asshole, and I still stayed true to this. Hank was a complete asshole throughout this whole film. I get getting mad that, Scott stole your suit to take part in the Civil War, but come on, man. Are you really gonna hold a grudge like that? I feel like that's a petty reason to get angry. So, yeah, I don't know. And then there's Scott being absolutely boring. I said it before and I'll say it again. Scott is boring. He's not an interesting character. Even as Ant-Man, he is still not very compelling. I don't give a shit about Ant-Man. Nothing about him is at all appealing to me. Just because he shrinks doesn't make him that cool. And even his secret identity as Scott is still a dull character who's just a master thief, and that's about it. But yeah, that's all I have to say in this case. So, about my theory that I had. So, in terms of Janet, I've noticed that Janet has gained these otherworldly powers from the microverse that allows her to essentially, I don't know, mess with people's minds or something, or basically do things that no one has ever seen before. I feel like that's a very interesting thing with her because when she did that whole mind thing where she touched Ava's mind and made her, stable, it reminded me of Professor X from the X-Men. And I have a theory that states that maybe, just maybe, this is one of the ways that the MCU and the X-Men universe can cross over. Because I remember in another series, and I can't believe I'm bringing this up, but there was this one episode of Johnny Test. Yes, I know, Johnny Test. Why the hell would I be mentioning Johnny Test? But then again, terrible show, terrible movie. They kind of go hand in hand. But in one Johnny Test episode, Johnny literally shrinks to microscopic size until he is literally in another universe. So, this is just my small theory, but maybe this is a way that the X-Men and the MCU can, form into one. Or at least it's like our first indication. Because what if they shrink to microscopic size and they grow into another dimension where they shrink to the microverse and transverse through the universes, and then they end up going into the X-Men universe through microscopic, microverse, world traveling bullshit. I mean, you never know. That's just my theory on that. I hope that could be the case. I mean, what other way could it be? But anyway, that's just my theory. So, all in all, Ant-Man and the Wasp, it was a movie that I honestly wasn't too big of a fan of, but there were enough things in the film to at least keep my attention for whatever it was trying to do. I still feel like Ant-Man as a character isn't really all that interesting. He's basically just a dude that can shrink to the size of an ant and smaller, and to me, I just don't find any appeal in that. The Wasp is more interesting because she flies, she can fight, she's got the blasters. Meanwhile, Ant-Man is just a dude who can shrink and grow super huge, and that's about it. Maybe if he had some more things to his weapons and all that, maybe I might find him a little more interesting. But for the most part, Ant-Man doesn't really seem like a character I would care too much about. And I knew this going in that I would find this film kind of boring. And I ended up being correct. Like I said, there were some good things in it, like the big post-credit ending. But anything above that, I think it's just kind of a run-of-the-mill Marvel film that tries to be something unique, but it honestly just feels like every other Marvel movie that tries to be funny. I actually fell asleep while watching it anyway, so I guess that gives you a good indication of what I thought about it in its entirety. I don't really consider it that important in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and if you ask me, I could care less if there is a third movie. It did good enough in reviews, but you know, I'm sorry if you thought I was going to give a decent review, I really can't because I just don't care for this movie. I never cared for Ant-Man. I never cared for the first movie. And as far as anything goes, if Ant-Man 3 does happen, I'll probably have the same kind of energy towards it. But we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you liked it as much as I did. Don't let my opinion deter you from watching Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch it, but I'm just saying my all-around feelings towards it were a little bit numb. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't like it. But you can form your own opinion on it. You can say you like it or not. Just go watch it and see for yourself. Oh yeah, I forgot to give a review for this. If I had to give a review, I'd probably say, maybe, okay, yeah. I'd have to say it's a 6 out of 10. Like I said, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. So I'd say that definitely deserves a 6 out of 10. Anyway, thank you guys for watching my video again. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, remember, I'm also part of a DC podcast for the DC fans who watch my videos. You can check them out at YouTube channel Nerdy Nick, and the podcast is titled DC Films Podcast. And we also have a new podcast called The Bitter Geeks, where we talk about other things non-DC related. Our first video was about Thor Ragnarok, but just understand it all comes from a place of pure criticism. It's not any sort of deep-seated hatred for the movie or anything. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you all again soon. But anyway, see you later, guys.
What is this? A center for